obviously really big win at the weekend, beating City, picking up the FA Cup. Ten Hag's future is still up in the air. There's been a lot of briefings stating that he's going to go. There's been a few others saying their club isn't going to rush the decision. But although many people think it's done and dusted, what do you boys think the club should do on Ten Hag?
It's a tough one, isn't it, Ten Hag? I mean, you can't argue. Like I said in the group chat the other day, 2 seasons, 2 trophies. Like, okay, you got to look at the wider league form as well. You can't just take the trophies into account. But if there are no clear improvements on Ten Hag, do you look at it and go, okay, maybe now we've got this new model. If Ten Hag is happy to work as a head coach and we present him our plans of what we're trying to do, and he can present to Man United that he can work within that structure, then I feel like, you know, maybe he deserves a chance to show that he can work under this new structure that Man United are trying to push. I mean, I said I think that's trophies wise, he's doing good. He just needs to pick up that league form. He needs to, I think, get away from transfers. I think that's been his downfall. Transfer-wise, he hasn't got a good track record of what he's brought in. You take that away from him and he's happy to have that taken away and give him some quality players, save him for himself, then, yeah, I feel like keeping him wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
I think you always have to look at Manchester United striving to be the best, because that is what you've always tried to be. The last decade hasn't looked that way, right? And I don't think Ten Hag is the best. Now, what I will say, to caveat that is there better than him available? If the answer is not really, and you want to go in for De Zerbi or Gareth Southgate or take a punt on one of the ones that have just come up from the Championship, I just think, what is that going to be massively changing for me? Is that massively striving for the best? So would Ten Hag work under a structure that is Wilcox and what's the name, Ashworth and Brad, all these guys? Do you think that is the way forward? Now, if you give Ten Hag till Christmas and say, look, you know, we don't really think you should be here, but we're going to give you till this time as a fan base, then fair play. But actually, I think these guys that are coming in need to believe and trust in this new manager. I'm not so sure that they can do that yet. But Ratcliffe is apparently saying that he might keep him now. I don't know what the best is for the fans or what the fans want. Personally, from the ones available, there's only really Conte, Mourinho, and Tuchel that has any form of CV that you would look at and go fair play. Most of the fans I speak to don't want any of those 3. So maybe you just keep Ten Hag because I don't really see I don't know what Man United fans want, Terry. You know, I've been on here quite a lot talking about Man United, saying, do you want a process? Do you want a project? Do you want to win now, manager? No one really knows. They're just so done with it. They're like, I don't really care. I just want to win. Well, you just have one. That's
the problem with a lot of Man United fans. It's someone like, no, we have to continue what Ten Hag started. But he's in a Glazer process, which you all say will fail. So why continue with a process that's already got lots of problems? We have to start again. And when people say, do you want a project manager? I think, again, it's defining what that kind of look like. Man United need to gut the entire club. Some bits are not even directly football related. The whole club needs gutting. And our new ownership needs to be sure that Ten Hag is the person that can do that. Can he not just say it in a meeting, not just say it in an interview, but can he really lose the volume of power he's got and remain happy? Can he have his control over transfers taken away and remain happy? Can he, whatever they decide on how we have to play as a football club, which people still look at like it's an alien concept. It isn't. This is how we operate under Fergie. It's just that Fergie was from an era where the manager controlled what it looked like. He then got his coach to train it. Fergie very rarely took coaching sessions at the club. He didn't coach the team. He was the manager of the club. In the same way that the sporting directors kind of aren't. They don't manage the team. Your head coach sort of does it. So the club's always done this. It's just the roles have got new names and they're slightly more fragmented now than they used to be. There's more jobs than there used to be. But it's because clubs are exponentially bigger now than they used to be. There's so much more that goes on at a football club now than 30 years ago. Squads are bigger. It is what it is. So I look at it and go, it all depends. There's so many factors that are not even about Ten Hag personally for me. Does he have a pedigree of coaching the style of football we want as a club? The players that we've been scouting the last 6 months, 9 months that we're talking to, is he the right man to bring them alive? Does he have the right Does the manager have the right character for what they want? And that's not a dig. It's they know what they want to build, and they have to get all these things right. So I think too many fans are focused on, oh, can he? You know, oh, he won us this trophy, or oh, with the structure he could probably cook. But maybe he isn't even in their mind's eye. On his CV, got the style of football they want to play, and that makes sense. Again, if you buy a restaurant and you want to make the best steaks in the world, I want to be the best steakhouse imaginable. But you buy a restaurant that currently does a bit of steak, but it's a bit of a pub restaurant where they do a lot of everything. But you want to be known to have the best steak around. But your chef is okay at steaks, but nothing special. You might go, do you know what? I really like him. He's a good chef, but he's got to go because I want to go and get a world-class steak chef in. There's so many multiple factors to this.
Do they know how they want to play? Because we spoke about this before, Terrace. They're looking at different profiles of manager, different brands of football.
It's a really good question. And a lot of people have said, well, there doesn't seem to be any continuity with that. So therefore, my view is I think there's a name or two on the list that we're not even seeing yet. We did it with the CEO. Nobody mentioned Omar Barada's name. And then he was picked out the bag as an example. And I'm hoping we do something similar. But for me, out of all the managers we're linked to, the only one that I really want is De Zerbi. I think there's a very talented manager in him. I understand the question marks that hang over his head. I do. But I believe he'll deliver at the highest level. I believe he'll get us playing excellent football. I believe that he will make us a much better team. The question marks are there as to whether or not he can get over the line and win trophies. Now, when it comes to cup competitions, Ten Hag has demonstrated that he can do that. But your bread and butter is how good you are in the league.
Why would you rather De Zerbi over Tuchel? Is it just because of style of football? Or because
style of football? So again, that's me having a personal preference. But as I've said all along, and this is again when it comes to these conversations, everybody's so emotional about them. My feeling isn't personal about Ten Hag or Tuchel or De Zerbi. It's how I would like to see us play football. But I know there's risks with what I personally want. But as I've said since day one, and I know we've done many shows together, boys, I will back the decision they make in the sense of I will get behind it for a prolonged period of time and support it. So if we go for a Tuchel, and this summer we sign 5 players, 3 of which are already very established, my expectations for us to get into title races and to win major trophies will be a lot quicker than if we hire De Zerbi and we strip out a lot of our experience and we buy up-and-coming players. I'll eventually want us back in the same position, but the speed of which it takes to get there is going to be very, very different. And the example I give is this: if you two both start in the gym at the same time, you're going to eat the same foods, drink the same drinks, and sleep at the same time. But Lawless is taking steroids and Dan isn't. My expectations is for Dan to get bigger and musclier Lawless to get bigger and musclier before Dan, because there's a variable. So if we bring in a Tuchel and we sign experienced players, that variable means I want to get to the end result quicker than a less experienced manager. And that's what I'm going to do. And I just think that there's not enough Man United fans that are being objective. I saw Goldbridge the other day, and I respect his opinion, say that it'll be Ineos out if they get rid of Ten Hag. But you're ignoring multiple other factors that could lead to him losing his job. Maybe Ten Hag says, I don't really want to be the manager if I'm losing control of the transfers. Therefore, the ownership say, well, we've got to let you go. How can you be Ten Hag out for that? You need a board and a manager that see eye to eye, see things from the same. And Man United fans are ignoring all of the multiple factors that can go into this. And they're just saying, if I don't get what I want, I'm going to be angry. We've got to drop that. We've got to. Well, the one thing we have at the club now for the first time in a decade is skilled and trained football decision makers. We've all been asking for it. We have to get behind it for a period of time. We just have to.
That for me, if I was a Manchester United fan, would be the most exciting, is what are these guys going to do to this club in terms of what they're going to bring in? Because let's be real, Tel, you would agree with this, I'm sure, because you're not one of the deluded bunch. You've spent an unbelievable amount of money, but look at what it has been spent on. It is an absolute mess, right? Even 80 million on Maguire, people will look at Maguire's mentality and say he's not the issue, but that was an amazing amount of money to spend on a player that really was not worth that much. Anthony could be thrown into that bracket as well. You've really got quite a lot wrong as opposed to them right, and that goes back across most of this decade, to be fair. I think that's the biggest excitement I would have, is that these people coming in are actually footballing men. So people will then start to compare. Do you know, for example, when Arne Slot come to Liverpool, everyone was like, "Oh, that's Ten Hag." I kind of disagreed, not because I don't think he's like any better or worse than Ten Hag, but actually the structure at Liverpool is completely different, and that's why I think the next appointment that you do make, whether it be somebody that Ten Hag is replaced by Ten Hag, I think you can actually get behind more, because the people in charge now actually know what they're doing, and it isn't just, "Hi mate, you're apparently quite a good manager, aren't you? Yeah, there's a load of money. Do what you want with it. Oh, aren't you going to help me?" No, not at all.
Yes.
You're going to do what you want. That is not going to work. And I think for me now that it is going to work, and you have Ten Hag. If it is Ten Hag, let's just say you keep him, and you say, right, this is what we're going to do.
Exactly right. And the reason why I say people have got to be objective is you always get the same people saying keep Ten Hag. Look how long it took Fergie. Are the same people that won't be objective if he goes. If, for instance, we employ a manager that's going to need time to build, if we're going to strip out all the experience and start again as a football club, my point of view is this: we don't know what we don't know. If the club decides we're going to strip out all the experience and rebuild it up from the ground, we believe that's the quickest way of getting back to the very top, then I'm going to get behind it. But I know it takes a little bit longer. And there's the comment that come through, and I respect John. He watches a lot. He says, "Nah, Terry, I'm much older than you, and your mindset is not good." I'd love you to specify what you mean by my mindset is not good. Because I'd love to have the conversation with you about it. But I believe my mindset on this situation is right. I'm going to get behind whatever I've got my wish, boys. My wish was to have football decision makers running my club. So I'm going to get behind. It doesn't mean I won't challenge. Doesn't mean I won't say I like that or I don't like this. But it means I'm going to get behind what they're doing. I think we've made the most important appointments at the club. I think the appointments of the Dan Ashworth and the Baradas are more important than the managers, because that's what we've had missing. There's no point having a good manager and good players if the club has no foundation. So for me, that's what I'm focusing more on. We will know Monday if we can play in Europe based on reports. Yeah, I've just seen that from the Telegraph. They said that Man United have until Monday to satisfy UEFA that both Man United and Nice can compete in the Europa League next season. That will be sorted out. Like, I'm not even worried about that. Interestingly,
what is that all about then? What is that then?
So essentially, there are rules within UEFA where if you've got owners if you've got an owner of, say, Man United that also owns another football club, on paper they're not allowed to compete in the same competition.
Okay.
But there's a way of doing it where you, in terms of who's on the boards and what percentages are there and stuff like that. But because you've got City with Girona next year will be in the Champions League, the two RB clubs have both played in the Champions League, so that's doable. But what's really interesting is Man United and Nice can get each other in the group stages. That'll be an interesting one. I almost want to avoid them just because if you end up getting them, you know that's going to just open up a massive can of. But yeah, that'll open up a massive can of worms, especially if we win both games. Oh, is it cheating? We're cheating.
If you was somehow, blocked from playing in the Europa League this season, does that mean Chelsea would go back into Europa League, Newcastle would go back into the Conference League, or would they'd have to find some solution?
That can't happen. They'll sort that out so both can compete. Same if Man City and Girona and Chelsea and Strasbourg, all these kind of things, that they're going to sort it out. There's enough politics that goes on.
And let's have it right. Let's have this right. Man United are the biggest team in the Europa League this year. If we drop out of it, someone sent it through to me today because we've actually got a good chance of winning it next year. If we improve, how I hope we do over the summer, you sort of look at the teams that are in it. No one drops down from the Champions League anymore.
Oh wow!
Okay, we dropped to the Conference League, but we won't drop to the Conference League. It'll be Nice because the rule I read about it yesterday. The bylaw, because we won our country's Premier Cup competition, that puts you above a 5th place finish according to the bylaw. But
I think it should.
Yeah, you look at the teams that are in the
Champions League format. No one drops down. You just go out.
No one drops down from the Champions League anymore. So you've got Roma that are in it, and Porto, Rangers, Spurs, Lazio. I'm not saying they're all rubbish, but you look at the size of these teams. The Europa League needs Man United in it. They're the biggest teams. Like there's no way UEFA are going to go. The biggest team that will bring Man United match days in the Europa League will get more views than a lot of clubs get in the Champions League. I think we could all agree on that due to the size of the fan base. UEFA are not pushing us down to the conference. Otherwise, they're just not doing it, in my opinion. So,
unless they want to boost the Conference League up.
Yeah, they could. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? John here says, by the way, Terry, no disrespect intended. No, listen, I don't take it disrespectfully when people challenge me, my bro. I actually like it. I like more of it. But I like you when you guys say I don't like your mindset. I'd like you to specify so I know exactly what you're talking about. That helps me a lot. Yeah, I like it. I love the challenge, people. So please don't worry. Diego here says Terry is what we call a featherweight fan. He says he goes with the wind. Yeah. He goes with whatever direction is popular, like the Ten Hag out agenda. He doesn't think for himself. He follows like a sheep. But this is a fair point. It's a fair point to raise. But it is wrong because I don't have an agenda against Ten Hag. I've also stated if these same football decision makers say they're going to keep him, I'm going to support it in the same way. So how is that the same as a Ten Hag outer? Secondly, my reasonings for wanting the manager to go have been very, very different from everybody else for the last 6 to 7 months. It's about what I think will improve the club quicker. And I believe new regime, clear everything out, start again with a completely fresh canvas, I think will improve faster from that position. Now, you as a Man United fan should hope I'm right if we do that. Me as a Man United fan, if we don't and stick with Ten Hag, I hope I'm wrong because my only agenda is Man United being better. So I wouldn't necessarily call that a fair weather fan that goes with the wind. I think it's a very different opinion to what most people hold. Thank you very much for your feedback, my friend. I appreciate that loads. This here says from Donna, what Mr. Flewers and Mr. Lawless. Cute boys.
Do you know what? I saw the comment earlier saying Donna doing Dan dirty before I'd see that. And now I'm saying
she wants to do it, Jay. I don't know, bruv. I don't have an issue with replacing Ten Hag, but it has to be for someone better with quality and experience, not the likes of Southgate and Frank. Again, I get that logic and I agree, but doesn't that also mean the quality and experience of coaching football in the way in which the club wants to play moving forward in the long term? So say we want to play football like De Zerbi plays, but Ten Hag doesn't want to lose control and power over the transfers, doesn't want to play the Ajax way because he said he doesn't want to play at Man United. This is how we play here. Say he says, no, I want to continue what I'm doing. You can't have a manager and a board that don't see eye to eye. Not from day one. You can't. So we have to be objective and listen to the rationale and reasonings that come out before we judge. I think having almost like a predetermined thought around how you're going to feel after something happens when you don't even know the reasons why is crazy. That's what doesn't make sense to me. We need to be objective here and get behind the club.